Good evening, everyone. I know it was so quiet when you guys were in here before. Like, do we talk? Do we not talk? Do we? Tonight is what they call a tenebrae service, and for those of you that go, "Tena what?" It just is a Latin word that means darkness. And so, what we will do is continue our journey from last night, where we follow Jesus from the Mount of Olives to the crucifixion. And so this is the in-between time before we get to the triumphant Easter Sunday. But it progressively gets darker and darker and darker. So those of you that have children, let them know that even their books and stuff aren't going to be real effective as soon as I go back and turn the lights off. And for you adult children, even when you feel that, I would just silence this now, and then when you feel it buzz, don't be the person like at the movie theater where you think you can hide it in your crotch far enough that nobody can see it. You can't. You just can't. Inevitably, even if you try and cover it up or whatever, it's not going to work. Just the service is not very long, but I will tell you, just don't turn it on, because all of the lights will be out, and so you will be ousted by your own device yourself. What the flow is we will have some instrumental music, we will have some candles and some reading of the story, and then at the end, it'll just be completely dark. What I will let you know is there is no official ending, no official benediction to the service. It's simply letting the weight of the story ring. Let it ring true for you and for the things that happened in the past and what that means for all of us. And then after a few minutes or so of it being completely dark, then I will turn a few lights on in the back and simply just stand up, head on out. If you want to talk or you have people that you want to see, I would prefer that you talk to them outside in the parking lot. It is very, very nice, so it's a good place to do that. But here, that it would just be, this is a bit more of a quiet and somber service. And if you have little ones or my little ones get a little rowdy, that happens. But I would encourage you to take a moment now, do some silencing, or hit the do not disturb. It's the moon on your telephone if you have a Steve Jobs device. For the Google people, you can never silence Google. They're always watching and finding you. But I would encourage you to take a minute now to simply just prepare yourself. I'll eventually turn the lights out, and then we will begin.
And his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. When he rose from prayer, he went back to the disciples. He found them asleep, exhausted from sorrow. "Why are you sleeping?" he asked them. "Get up and pray, so that you will not fall into temptation." Take a few minutes and ask yourself, have I ever been in a position where God was calling me to do something that I did not want to do? Would I be willing to lay down my life for another?
While Jesus was still speaking, a crowd came up, and the man who was called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He approached Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus asked him, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" When Jesus' followers saw what was going to happen, they said, "Lord, should we strike with our swords?" And one of them struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his right ear. But Jesus answered, "No more of this." And he touched the man's ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests, the officers of the temple guard, and the elders who had come for him, "Am I leading a rebellion that you have come with swords and clubs? Every day I was with you in the temple courts, and you did not lay a hand on me. But this is your hour when darkness reigns." Take a moment and reflect on when you have betrayed someone or when you were betrayed by someone you love. To yourself, say a prayer to God that expresses your feelings of sadness and regret and your desire for forgiveness.
Then seizing Jesus, the soldiers led him away and took him into the house of the high priest. Peter followed at a distance. And when some there had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard, they all sat down together. Peter sat down with them, and a servant girl saw him seated there by the firelight and said, This man was with him." But Peter denied it. "I do not know him," he said. And now a little later, someone else saw him and said, "You also are one of them." "No, I'm not," Peter replied. But an hour later, another asserted, "Certainly this fellow was with him, for he is a Galilean." Peter replied, "I don't know what you're talking about." Just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed. And the Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word that the Lord had spoken to him. "Before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times." He went outside and wept bitterly. For the next few moments, consider a time when you, in your own way, responded to the world with, "I do not know him." At daybreak, the council of the elders of the people, both the chief priests and the teachers of the law, met together, and Jesus was led before them. "If you are the Messiah," they said,
Tell us." Jesus answered, "If I tell you, you will not believe me. And if I asked you, you would not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God." They all asked, "Are you then the Son of God?" He replied, "You say that I am." Then they said, "Why do we need any more testimony? We have heard it from his own lips." Then the whole assembly rose and led him off to Pilate, and began to accuse him, saying, "We have found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be Messiah, a king." So Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," Jesus replied. Then Pilate announced to the chief priests and the crowd, I find no basis for a charge against this man."
But they insisted. He stirred up the people and all over Judea teaching. He started in Galilee and has now come all the way here to Jerusalem. On hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was under the Galilean jurisdiction. And when he learned that Jesus was in Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him. Now Herod saw Jesus, and he was greatly pleased, because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. From what he had heard about him, he hoped to see him perform signs of some sort. So he plied with him with many questions, but Jesus gave no answer. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were standing there vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him, dressed him in an elegant robe. They sent him back to Pilate. For that day Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this, they were enemies. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him a message. "Do not have anything to do with this innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." The chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed.
"Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. "Barabbas," they answered. "What shall I do, then, with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" Pilate answered. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him!" When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All of the people answered, "His blood is on us and on our children." How would you feel if someone washed their hands of you? How would it feel to have no one on your side? Take a moment and place yourself in Jesus' position. Imagine the heartache. Imagine the feeling of abandonment. Jesus had done nothing wrong, yet they still cried, "Crucify him!" And Pilate literally washed his hands of Jesus.
loud shouts, the crowd insistently demanded that he be crucified, and their shouts prevailed. So Pilate decided to grant their demand. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, the one they asked for, and surrendered Jesus to their will. As the soldiers led him away, they seized Simon from Cyrene, who was on his way in from the country, and put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. Now a large number of people followed him, including women who mourned and wailed with him. Jesus turned and said to them, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. For the time will come when you will say, 'Blessed are the childless women, the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.' Then they will say, 'O mountains, fall upon us, and hills cover us. For if people do these things when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry?'" 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place of the skull, which is Aramaic called Golgotha, they crucified him. For the next few moments, let those last words resound just a bit in your mind. They crucified him.
It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon, for the sun stopped shining. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Jesus called out with a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." When he had said this, he breathed his last.
Now there was a man named Joseph, a member of the council, a good and upright man, who had not consented to their decision and action. He came from the Judean town of Arimathea, and he himself was waiting for the kingdom of God. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body. Then he took it down, wrapped it in linen cloth, and placed it in a tomb cut in the rock, one in which no one had yet been laid. It was preparation day, and the Sabbath was about to begin. The women who had come with Jesus from Galilee followed Joseph and saw the tomb, and how his body was laid in it. Then they went home and prepared spices and perfumes.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble.